Tired of guesswork? Sick of missing line items in your estimates? Introducing the actionable Xactimate profile. Experience live estimating guidance as you write your scope in Xactimate. No more mistakes, no more missed line items. Tap into insights from industry experts, streamline your scoping process, and watch as every estimate rapidly improves. And the best part? No need to train your team on new software. Activate the actionable profile within Xactimate and let the magic unfold. RIA members enjoy 10% off the Pro plan for life. Ready to level up your scopes? Write better estimates every day with the actionable Xactimate profile. Sign up today.
Good afternoon or good morning for wherever you are in this wonderful world that we live in. So today we're going to be talking about 3D technology and how it can impact the breadth of your business. My name is John Vogt, and our other presenter is John Warnick. We're both of Blue Sky Restoration, and there was a recent merger between Mammoth Restoration and Blue Sky Restoration. Couple housekeeping things right up front that I want to get to. I want you to really think about a couple things. I know this might sound goofy, but think about a tape measure. Now think about a laser, and think about time and how valuable time is and what you would be able to do with that time if you had extra in a day, a week, a month, a year. I want you to keep thinking about that throughout today's presentation, because I think it's really going to have an impact on what we're talking about and how you're going to be able to apply some of what we talk about today. Another thing that I do want to remind everybody of, when we talk about 3D technology, there are multiple platforms out there. And that's going to be up to you to choose what's best for your business. So we're not going to talk about one platform versus the other. We're going to talk about this in general terms, and we'll have time at the end to answer questions. And if we don't have time to get to your questions, we will get answers to you most likely within the next week. So without further ado, I guess I'll tell you a little bit about me. I've been in the industry for 20 years now, and I'm going to date myself a little bit. I was the guy that feared technology. I was a gentleman that used to really rely on that graph paper, the pen, the pencil. Of course, I'd always make sure I had extra in case the ink was frozen if I was in a fire job or it was cold outside. And then when we talk about a tape measure, that was one of the largest tools in my tool bag, because I had to measure everything, and that takes time. And of course, 20 years ago, we did not have GPS. So good old maps.com, that's where I'd print it out and I'd get to go where I needed to go. I do have a triple master's. I would consider myself a student for life. And at the end of the day, one of the most important things for me is to take what I have learned and get some of that out of my head and share that experience with others in the industry, and let everybody know that being a restorer is a career and it's not just a job. My last position was with Mammoth Restoration as president. And as I had mentioned before, we are now part of Blue Sky Restoration. Now, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about John Warnick. Now, this guy I have worked with for, I believe, 12 years now. And as you all know, in this industry, 12 years, I mean, it flies. Seems like yesterday when I first met John. The neat thing about John, he has grown up through the ranks from being a technician. His last position he held before joining Blue Sky was director of national projects for Mammoth Restoration. He's now the VP out of our Lancaster office, and he's got multiple responsibilities, and he is always looking for new ways to be innovative and save time. So if there's a technology out there, I'd be willing to bet he is one of the first to know about it. And 9 out of 10 times when he tells me about something, I'd say, heck, I didn't even know that existed. But at the end of the day, if it's going to improve efficiency for the overall team, let's take a look at it. So there you go, John. You're up.
Well, thank you for that intro, and good morning to everyone. I guess on the West Coast, and good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast. So what we're doing today is we're talking about 3D imaging. And the best thing I think we need to do is define what we're calling 3D imaging. So for today's purposes, what we're going to say is 3D imaging is the process of creating or manipulating a three-dimensional image of an object or an environment. Typically, we are accomplishing this today with 360-degree cameras. Advancements in technology has allowed these cameras to become more affordable and more accessible than previous decades. It's a technology that's been around for a while, but we really didn't see much use of it until I'd probably say the last 3 to 4 years. COVID really did push it to the forefront of our industry, and it's one of those technologies that seems to be staying. So we need to take time and make sure that we understand how to use it and how it can benefit us. So right now, we're seeing majority of our competitors and a lot of our offices switching over to the 3D technology because it's just an easier way for us to damage the loss of all these properties that we're handling. It's faster, it's more efficient, right? So it also provides an easy to use virtual tour for everybody that's involved with your loss or the property damage. So 3D imaging has evolved to capture interactive images being used to help speed up the estimating costs, help speed up the estimates themselves. And we're doing that by generating floor plans that we used to rely on somebody going out with, as he mentioned, a tape measure. As we advance to laser tapes, right? We've eliminated that through this 3D imaging technology, and it's sped up our estimating process, right? Lastly, it's done a lot to enhance the credibility of a lot of restorers in terms of their professional appearance. When you're trying to show a customer or stakeholder what's going on through a photo album of 2D images that you either captured on your iPhone, or for some of us that may have used these standalone cameras, it's kind of difficult to paint the picture. The technology that we're utilizing today makes that a lot more fluid, a lot more easily distributed to all of our stakeholders. So let's take a minute here and jump into what the documentation that we're using with 3D imaging can do for you as a company. Right now, 3D imaging allows us restorers to document the damage or loss of the property in a comprehensive and accurate way. It reduces the need for manual measurements, sketches, and photographs. You know, we said earlier, gone are the days of remembering to take 100 pictures with the camera. You're going to make sure you get one from every corner and one from above, one from below. After you do that, for those of you who might have been in the industry long enough, you take that disc out of the camera, then you put it in your computer, then you got to pull up the photos, you got to relabel the photos, and then drop it into your software system, right? Now it's doing that while capturing a 3D image that's going to be interactive, right? In addition to that, it's going to remove a lot of the human error and inefficiencies, okay? We used to have a big problem with our sketches since we did not have a turnkey PM, and that's defined as a project manager who's going to go in and be a part of the mitigation phase and see it all the way through to the reconstruction phase. So for the businesses out there that have guys who are really skilled in mitigation and guys who are really skilled in the repair process, sometimes you were dealing with two different sketches. What this has done, it's kind of eliminated that because on the mitigation side, with the scan and the capture of the floor plan, we are utilizing that same sketch. And now we're not getting any kickback if there's any differences in our estimates, all right? What it's also doing for us, it's documenting pre-loss conditions for all unaffected areas and contents. I don't know how many of us on the phone call here today have ever had to buy a new fridge, a new dishwasher, heck, even maybe a floor because we scratched it, right? What we're doing with 3D mapping now is we're basically using it as a CYA, right? So we're going in, and no longer are we hoping that our technician or our project manager did their job and properly documented everything. We should be able to go in now with 3D technology and pull up a fridge and probably read what's on that fridge. A lot of the cameras out there today have super high quality images that allow us to see whether or not that nick or dent was there prior to us getting there. So lastly, one of the things I think that's my favorite feature right now is the side-by-side analysis, okay? This allows us to document the job before, during, and after. It's a true progress of start to finish that we can relay to all stakeholders. And it's also serving as a great marketing tool for us to get additional work in the future. We're going to jump into this real quick. One of the things that we've been utilizing, again, 3D imaging for is side-by-side analysis. The one picture you're looking at here was a large warehouse fire that we did. On the left, you had before images. On the right, you had after images. Now, these are still images, but if you were to actually jump into the link, you can see that this becomes very interactive. We actually had a job much like this one where the stakeholder involved was remote. He was actually in a completely different state, but he wanted to communicate daily to all of his stakeholders what was going on. He relied so heavily on our 3D imaging and progress scans to make sure that everybody that could not be on the job site was able to track the progress of that job. I think it might be easier at this point if we actually jump into one of these tours and show some of those features. So hopefully this works. And if it doesn't, please let me know. So with that said, some of the features that you'll see here is at the top of this particular software, it's going to give you the dates in which we showed up and did additional scans. You should be able to toggle between the two and see progress dates. So in other words, we started on the 19th, here's an update on the 21st, here's an update on the 1st of March. We even have the ability, rather than trying to toggle between the two dates, is if we go to, let's say, the 1st of March and we want to compare it to the beginning, we hit the compare button and we are able to manipulate the screen and the image to see what before and after looks like from the start of the process. It's a pretty cool feature. Some of the other things that this particular software does allow, if you go back to the original date, is over here on your left-hand side, you have a map. With that map, everywhere you see a blue dot is essentially where somebody scanned and took an image. This job was quite a large job, so it did take a lot of scans to get all this in. But it played a crucial part in our daily notes and keeping everybody updated. The other thing that's, I think, a really, really cool feature here is going to be this one down here in the right-hand corner. So every now and then we'll go to a job and we'll knock it out the park. And then when it comes time to write the estimate, we just don't have the photos. Or it's like, hey, I need documentation of the equipment. Did you get documentation of the equipment? And sometimes the answer is no. We can go back now with this technology. And in this particular software, we click this little camera on the bottom right-hand side, and it allows us to take screenshots, okay? So what it's done is eliminate some of the going back and forth to capture things that may have been missed by techs on the job site. It's been, I can't tell you how many times, a lifesaver for me. So as long as you guys have good processes in place that are making sure that the scans are being updated prior, during, and at the end of the job, you'll have the ability to, depending on the software that you pick, do very similar things that you're seeing here today. So I'm going to jump out of this real quick. Give me a second.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
before you do that, and everybody sees the little dots on the left-hand side, this facility was roughly 50,000 square feet with another 15,000 square feet of office and parts room. Could you just let everybody know how long it actually took to scan this facility, just to give everybody an idea of scan versus tape measure and laser?
Yeah. So with this particular camera, scanning probably took us, I want to say, about 3 hours to get this scanned. Part of that is, as we are doing updates with this particular software, you want to make sure that every time you do an additional scan, you're matching up from the previous one. That way, if you're doing a true side-by-side, we're looking at the same spot in the building and not somewhere different. 3 hours for me, some say that might take a while. For me, that's a lot faster and more accurate than I would normally have gotten with a tape measure or a laser tape. And the only thing that's actually nicer about this sketch too is that in the event that I need to go back and maybe catch something that I forgot to measure, like a cabinet or something of that nature, depending on your software, you can pull that from the screen and get those measurements. So it is truly a big time saver. I don't know if that helped answer your question there, John.
No,
So,
that was great.
I'm gonna jump back in to this, maybe. Give me a second here, guys. A little technical difficulty. All right, so back to this. All right, now that we've seen the virtual tour and some of the quick features, let's talk about how we can use this outside of maybe what we are traditionally thinking that we're going to use it for, right? So what we've done with the virtual tours is we've reduced the need for on-site management. We are utilizing these virtual tours for real-time, in-the-moment management and scoping. So let's just say you had a green technician who you've sent to either Mrs. Smith's house or to a brand new commercial job. And the schedule doesn't allow you to have somebody there with some experience. But what you can do is you can make sure that you teach the tech to get there, meet the customer, go through the normal spill, and then get the scan. As soon as they get their initial scan and they can upload it, some softwares allow you to see that scan immediately. So once that scan's up, you can have somebody who's remote pull up that 3D image and start walking through the property with that technician in the moment. So now when somebody's on the phone saying, hey, it looks like we have a toilet overflow, it's affected 3 units, it's gone out into the lobby, what should I do? I can now be on the screen, moving through that building with them and kind of coaching them and saying, hey, here's what we're going to do in this case. Check that, see if there's an additional layer under that, tile square there. It's become a game changer for us in the fact that sometimes, we get busy, we get spread thin. And if we're spread thin, we can't be everywhere at once. So we're utilizing this technology to do remote management, all right? The other thing that we can do is, as long as they are scanning the job prior, during, and after, we can ensure that that new technician is actually doing what they should be doing, right? So if they go in day one and they do the flood cuts, they sanitize, we should be able to see in the progress scan that being completed. If something was missed, we can go back to it and talk about it later, which brings me to my next point. So enhanced training. Sometimes we're mainly talking about new employees and not having enough experience. But sometimes we have some employees that have been around for a while and maybe are cutting corners, right? I've done a lot of morning huddles where we pulled up a job that I know that we just did a demo on and may have been somebody experienced, and I put it up on the screen for everybody to see. And then we walk through it. We say, hey, what was the source? What was affected? And then we take everybody in the room and we say, hey, what did we miss? What did we do right? What could we have done better? Utilize this for that. It is not just a tool to send to your customer and say, hey, look, I took a picture. You can move around your house. You can move around your building. Use it for training, right? There is no substitute for on-site training except for this, right? It's the only way that I know as a manager, because I have to be in meetings all day, that I can pull up a job that I wasn't at and actually work with the technicians to make sure they're doing the right thing. The other part that I've seen as a result of utilizing these virtual tours, it's reduced our cycle times. That's from an estimating standpoint, and it's just from a start to finish standpoint. Because what it's allowing us to do is get everybody that's involved in the repair process started a lot sooner than they previously would have. On top of it, going up immediately once the technician is on site, I can now have the repair project manager taking a look at the job site and probably coaching to that mitigation technician something that he wouldn't have thought of on the mid side for the repair side. And as a result, we're getting ahead of it a lot sooner than we normally would have. It's been a great tool to bring two separate departments in our type of business together that traditionally may have butted heads. The other thing that we've seen great success with is subcontractor communication. I don't know, for those of you who have subs who say, I need to meet you on site, I need to walk through with the work order and make sure I agree to what we're doing. We've kind of eliminated that. A lot of the subs that we utilize now, we will send them a work order with a tour link, and we will work our way through the house and say, hey, here's where you're coming in. Here's the room that you're painting, right? Don't go in this room. There's a dog in there. And it's saved us a lot of time. And it's our subcontractors think it's great because now they're not wasting gas and time driving to 4 or 5 job sites a week just to make sure that they're agreeing to the work order that we're providing, right? So it's been an awesome tool for that. In addition, we'll jump into it a little bit later here in about a slide or two. We're able to, in our software, put notes within the tour so that if that subcontractor is on site and forgets something, they can pull it up, hit the button, and see what the note says, and it serves as a reminder. So if they can't get a hold of me or a project manager, they can utilize the virtual tour in the moment to get the answer that they need. On the other side, we've also used these virtual tours to enhance adjuster communication. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get a hold of a new job and I reach out to the adjuster and he says, hey, can't be there till Monday. And it's Thursday. When that happens, we say, hey, not a problem. We're going to send you a tour. If you got 15, 20 minutes, let's go through it together. That way you have a general idea of what's going on. So when you get out on Monday, you already have a better idea. That way we're not waiting or delaying this project any further. I need permission to do this now. Can I get it? And most of the times I do, right? The other thing that has come along with it is depending on your software, you can sometimes get an ESX file or you can get an overlay that you bring into Xactimate that will speed up your estimating and sketching process. And we're going to jump into that a little bit later, so I don't want to put too much on that right now, but it really does speed up that estimating side. And not that we sometimes disagree with adjusters, but sometimes we do. I've utilized these virtual tours to kind of settle a dispute. Somebody's brought up, hey, I'm not paying for this. You didn't do that. And then we'll say, well, I know you don't have time to meet me there, but why don't we just jump on a quick Zoom call? I'll pull up the job site. We'll work through it. I'll show you, look, that is 6-inch baseboard. It's not 4, right? And things like that settle real quick versus some back and forth emails that just take up everybody's time. Logistically, I've also seen, I can't tell you the time savings that we are seeing now. It originally started with one of our technicians not utilizing the software correctly. They started scanning the outside of the homes and outside of the buildings. And when we asked why, they just said, oh, that's what I thought I needed to do. And we didn't really connect the two dots until we had a very large project in New Jersey that getting in and out of the building was very difficult. And the logistical planning behind that and communicating to our subcontractors, to the dumpster company, to material deliveries, where semis could not come down a certain way or couldn't get into the truck, or there was only access at a certain point in time. What we ended up doing was sending out a virtual tour to these subcontractors and saying, hey, this is the front of the building. This is where the dumpster needs to go. Problem is, you can't get the dumpster in down the street. Turn the angle, show them the street, say the only way to do it is to take this street, and this is why. The power lines are coming across this road and won't let you have access. So think outside the box, right? Utilize the software to get additional things done, like logistical planning. It's saved us time, primarily on large loss in commercial facilities. It's done a lot for us to communicate to our subs where things need to be placed and when they need to be there and how to get into those certain spots of that business. Lastly, I think this is a point that John really likes, is it's done a lot for team collaboration and cohesiveness. As I said earlier, it's opened the door for inter office communication, at least for us. John, I don't know if you have additional stuff you want to expand upon with that.
No, I do. When we were talking about this presentation originally, I said, you know what, how can we tie in one team rather than mitigation, reconstruction, and sales? And how do we pull that all together? So if you're a business develop, or if you're in business development, you've got access to see what's going on all of the leads that you've brought in. And maybe one of your contacts or customers is calling you and saying, hey, what's going on? Because he's away, that link can then just get sent to him. And then the business development individual is always going to be able to keep their pulse on what's going on. So much so that the teams just start communicating better. The business development team shows up, mitigation team knows, hey, so-and-so's coming on site, and then rolling straight into the reconstruction. There is no dispute of, hey, you did that sketch incorrectly, or this should have been done this way as far as measuring, right? Remember when I first kicked this off stating the good old tape measure? How many times has somebody cut a corner and not measured a radius correctly? That all goes away. And the teamwork at that point and the synergy just starts building and building and building. So I really also want everybody to think about one team. Now, I know not everybody, but a lot of people have different divisions, and this closes the gap. And the last thing that I also want to bring up, if you have a content division, your content manager should be looking at every single scan, because he or she might be able to identify, wow, we need to get in there. Maybe we need to have a pack out, or maybe we've identified some art or some different technology and equipment that needs to be removed that maybe a technician just might not understand. It might be lack of training, or it might just be because they're tired and they've been out till 3 a.m. But if everybody is looking at this together, it's a win.
Yeah, I completely agree. So with that said, I do want to go back real quick and look at some of the features that I briefly discussed that we were utilizing with our subcontractors and that we can utilize with communicating to some of our adjusters. For this particular job, I believe we had a fire extinguisher go off. There was a fire and they used probably, I want to say about 10 of them. So one of the cool features in this particular software is the ability to either put in an additional note and tag it, such as this one right here, that pops up and says source, so that if you are unable to be on the call and walk an adjuster through the job, if you put proper notes into the actual software, you can instruct anybody that's looking at this link to say, hey, if you just work your way through the tour, you'll see notes from me that might identify the source, where we're using entry and access points, right, for trash, etc. In addition to that, you can put photos. You can either pull them directly off the internet, or if you take a photo with your smartphone, you can apply it and say, hey, here's the type of extinguisher that was used in this particular job, right? Because of that, we're going to have to clean it a certain way. It's one of the cool features that comes along with the technology. They do vary depending on what software you're using. So a lot of this, as we'll mention towards the end of the presentation, is make sure you're doing research. There's a lot of options out there. Find out the ones that work best for you and make sure that it's interoperable with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. With that said, again, see if I can get back to the presentation. There we go. All right. Estimating. So how are we utilizing this to speed up estimating? We did make mention earlier that it's reducing discrepancies between potentially having a mitigation technician pull together a sketch and a project manager pull together a sketch. But let's say you are lucky enough to have a turnkey PM. One of the things that may happen is when they go in and they get their initial measurements, they may forget the window, the door, the cabinets. Depending on the software, you can go back and grab that, right? It reduces the human error in the sense of maybe somebody misread their laser. Maybe somebody wasn't realizing with the laser that it's accounting for the back 3 inches of that laser, depending on that type of model. It gets rid of that all. In terms of ESX generation, there is a software out there that I absolutely love. I don't know about everyone on the call. Sketching and getting measurements for external building stuff like windows, roofs, etc. I dread it, and having to sketch it in Xactimate is even worse for me. There's a software out there now that I can go and with anywhere from 8 to 10 photos, working my way around that building, it will generate an ESX file that I can pull straight into Xactimate. I think if I were to put the time to it, how many hours that software alone has saved me and my team, it's incredible. And what's even more incredible is that particular software will do a takeoff for you that you can send in and get a price list on all the materials that you need. So some of the time efficiencies that's coming away from the technology, and I think we're still very early on in the technology and how it's going to be utilized. It really is producing a lot of time savings and efficiency for my teams that are out in the field today. The other part about this is job auditing. So some of us are utilizing outsourcing of estimating, or we have in-house estimators. It's good to have a review system. So if you do have that process where somebody else is writing your estimate, or you have an in-house estimating department, when you get it back, make sure you get somebody with a different set of eyes that hasn't seen the job yet, pulls up the tour, takes the estimate, and works their way through, right? You'll be surprised how much you can catch on that second look with somebody who hasn't seen that job yet. So make sure we're doing that, and make sure that along the way, again, I'm going to overemphasize this, that we're getting pre-scans, during scans, and after scans. It's just going to speed up estimating. That's what it's going to do. And if you ever need to go back just to make a reference to what was originally there and whether or not it needs to be included in the estimate, it is a lifesaver. All right. So how do we use this to give us a competitive edge? What I have done is I've taken the 3D imaging and used it in an interactive way to basically get my customer involved. Prior, I know we all send emails and we say, hey, here's the update, here's what's going on. One of the things I like to do immediately when I get on a job site is as soon as I get the scan done, and while I'm doing the scan, I'm walking them through the process of how the job's going to go. As soon as the scan is done, I will email it to them directly, and then I will ask them to pull it up. And as they pull it up, I work through that scan with the customer and say, okay, hey, here's what's going to happen. If you need pictures for whatever reason that I haven't provided you, just click the link, pull it up, click the little camera in the right-hand corner, and you can take whatever picture you need. I'm going to give you updates as we go that you will have to work through the building. So if anybody needs to see some kind of progress that's interactive, you can send this link on our behalf so that everybody can use it. It's been great. I can't tell you how many of our competitors are doing this. I feel like everybody is utilizing 3D technology, but I don't know if anybody's truly being interactive with their customer and making sure that their customer understands it. It has become one of the items that separated us from everyone in the sense that when people show up and they say, hey, are you going to give me a sketch or are you going to give me a 3D interactive tour? That's what they expect. And if your competitors are showing up and they're not providing that, you're setting yourself apart from them. So make sure you're doing it, right? As John has mentioned, and time saving. I can't tell you how little face-to-face time I had with my customers because I was too busy there doing this or taking the laser, writing down numbers. Now, put a little stand in the middle of the room. I hit the click button. And the whole time I'm doing that, I'm talking to my customer. I'm getting to know them. I'm saying, hey, is this the only building you manage? Oh, you manage 4 or 5. How often do you have losses? Is the first time you're using us? I can now focus on my customer rather than making sure that I'm getting the right measurement and I'm getting that window and not really paying attention to them. So utilize the technology to spend more time with your customers and get more interaction and develop that rapport you need for repeat business. It's amazing. The other part is multiply your decision makers. I go to a lot of jobs, but the only reason I probably tie a lot of my success is because of John Vogt. At the end of every job, I used to call him and say, hey, here's what we got going on. Walk me through it. What did I miss? What do we need to do? That conversation has now changed to I can be on site. I then send a text message to 3 individuals that I trust and say, hey, the scan is up for the new loss. Take a look at it. Tell me what I need or what I'm missing right now. Here is the game plan for today. What else do I need to do? And now I can run around with the customer, do what I need, make sure we are stabilizing the loss. Everybody's happy. And I come back to my phone and I have a list that just tells me, hey, did you do this, that, this, that? And half the time it's like, I did forget to do that. I'll make sure I go get it. It doesn't have to just be you. Make sure you're using everybody on your team. With this technology, you can get everybody involved. They don't have to be on site anymore to give you valuable feedback. All right.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
John, let me just jump in for a second. And I think you were being a little bit kind there, but I have to tell you, for all of you who are watching this right now, how many people have been up at 2 a.m. and had to run out to a water loss? Well, what John just mentioned, he was the guy that was out at 2 a.m. I got the text. I woke up. John, what's going on? Get to the link, and that trust and that bond is built, and I go right back to bed. And it happens the other way around too. So John's not just the guy that's out there. If I'm out there or anybody else on the team is out there, that connection is so important because that relationship that you have with the client. Now, remember, it might not be John's relationship. It might be mine, or it might be somebody else's. You can then go back to bed and rest easy knowing that your customer is taken care of. And what better business to get than referral business? It just costs a little bit of your time, and just make sure that process you're speaking to them about, they digest it and they understand it. And if they don't, take a step back and just reiterate it and let them know it again, because you're saving so much time. You have this extra time. So thanks, John.
Thank you. All right. So who's benefiting from this technology, right? Right now, I think the customer is. I've been able to communicate with the customer visually in ways that I've never been able to do before. Yes, photos do go a long way, but it's hard to paint a picture with photos. And if you do it, it's going to take a lot. And I know some of my technicians out there, for whatever reason, I feel like the magic number is 250, but they love taking 250 photos. And when you have to sit down with a customer and you're trying to work your way through those 250 photos and try to say, hey, here's how we started, here's where we got, it doesn't go over as well as you think. But if you're able to pull up an interactive link with a side-by-side comparison and say, listen, your house first looked like this when we showed up. This was about the midway point. Now here we are put back together, right? You can see in their faces the astonishment of the before and after. And it's quick, it's easy. It's easy for them to see. It's all accessible from their desktop. These are conversations I was not able to have 2-3 years ago. When COVID first kind of impacted our business, and we started utilizing this software. It was a game changer for us. It allowed us to communicate with adjusters who couldn't be on site, who couldn't gain access to properties. It took care of all that for us. We were able to send them the links. They were able to look at it, and we were able to communicate. So adjusters now are looking, at least the ones that we are working with on a daily basis, they're looking for these links. It just makes their life a lot easier. The upfront communication, where I know they have a jam-packed schedule and they can't get out there for a couple of days, but they do have to give some kind of answer back to the customer. You sending this tour link to them allows them to get eyes on it, much like John just described, where I might be calling them at 2 a.m. and saying, hey, here's what's going on. It's really not that big a job, or hey, it's a little bigger than I initially thought. They can get into it, take a look at it, and decide whether or not it's going to be a little bit more involved. Maybe I should get out there sooner. Or no, it's exactly how he described it. It's not that big of a job. It's pretty typical. Me getting out there Monday is not going to be a big issue. I can call the customer and say, hey, I spoke with John. We're at Blue Sky. He sent me the link that you also received. I went through it with him. Seems pretty straight up. I'll still be there Monday. Any questions between now and then, give me a call. It's gone over really well. Adjusters seem to like it. For those of them who can utilize the ESX file, they seem to appreciate it. And it's been a real great tool in developing that relationship with some of these adjusters. The other point is the contractor, right? And there's two components of this. So I'm going to say the contractor as us. It's the efficiencies and some of the going back and forth that it's eliminated has just made my life easier. The ability to jump into a link, see a job remote. As today, I happen to be in Los Angeles for some additional training, but work back home doesn't stop. And 5 jobs come in last night, and I'm not going to be home for another 3 days. I have the ability now just to hop in the job file, pull up the link, move my way through the jobs, see if there's anything out that's kind of obvious, call back to my MIP manager, say, hey, I was going through the links, walk me through this job again. What are we doing here? What are we doing with this? Did we set that up? I don't have to call that MIP manager and sort of say, hey, walk me through the entire job. Let's go through all 5. I can go through all 5 on my own time. Everything looks pretty straightforward. I have a before, I have a during, I have an after, right? And it allows me to get eyes on every job when maybe sometimes my job unfortunately demands that I sit in a desk for long periods of time. It's not what I like doing. John knows it drives me crazy. I'm a field person at heart, but at the same time, a lot of the office work needs to get done. And this tool I'm personally utilizing to make sure we're doing enhanced training with our techs so that we're constantly teaching. All right, if I can't be at the job site, well, I can use this to help better our team. Our MIP managers can use it to help better our team. So there's been tremendous upside for me as the contractor. That second piece is that subcontractor, at least for us, and how we are utilizing the technology to communicate to our subs where they're working, what their access points are, particularly what walls to paint, what walls not to paint, putting little tags in the actual virtual tour that allows them to reference it after we've had our initial walkthrough. It's just increased our overall communication between us, them, and the customer, and it's just resulted in a better result. The customers are happy, and it's just, if you're not using 3D technology, you got to start doing it. And the only other thing I will say to you is look for how it can benefit you and not just the typical ways, right? Start getting creative with it. Use it for training, use it for logistics, whatever you need to do, take advantage of it and make sure that your customers are seeing it. Make sure that your customers have access to it to share to other potential customers so that you can get more business. Now, with that said, there are some things to consider, and I think, John, you might want to jump into that a little bit and say it's not all rainbows. There are some things that are kind of difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I have seen over the years, and I know that we're saying that this is a new technology. It's actually not that new. I think I've been using it probably for roughly 5 years. One of the scans that I did in a residential home one time, a customer just said, "What the heck are you doing? Like, why are you doing that?" Like I was invading somebody's privacy, right? So now I'm almost conditioned to make sure that I go in, I explain, here's the why behind the what, and then it makes life a little bit easier. And then, of course, like John was saying, I'm able to show the customer exactly what's going on. Depending upon who houses your data and what systems you are on, you're going to want to make sure that you have enough room, enough storage for that. And then you're also going to want to make sure that it is safe, right? You don't want all of that information getting out into the wrong hands. And some people are very sensitive to that, customers. And for all the right reasons, they might have pieces of furniture in their home that they don't want others to see. There's certain jobs that we just simply can't scan because of certain sensitivities. But all in all, what you do want to make sure is that you have that backup and that you have that storage available. The insurance adjusters, some adjusters are simply not allowed to open external links. And that's just because of different securities that they have within their software and within their organizations. So those are certain things that you might have to work around. Quite frankly, we have had adjusters say, "Hey, can you just email it to this email instead of the company email?" And it makes their lives a little bit easier. And it also kind of starts building that bond and that relationship and that trust with that adjuster. And here's a real big one. Some people won't pay for the scan. Now, if you look in Xactimate, there's a line item for this that allows you to bill for it. And what I have found is by explaining the process, the cost, right? So you've got your upfront costs, and also you have a cost when you download that sketch, but you are now allowing it to be done faster, which allows you more time and attention with the customer, and typically less calls from the customer to the adjuster. Next slide, John. All right. So upfront costs, the contractor. I had made mention of this. You have to do what's right for your business. I have seen some companies purchase 1, 2, 3 devices. I have seen companies put a device in every single individual's hand that is in sales, production, whether that's repairs or mitigation. From the sales side of things, and I wanted to really touch on this just for a brief second, if you have master service agreements with any of your customers, it's a good idea at times to go in and scan that building so it's already archived. And when a loss happens, your technicians, your project managers can automatically pop that up into the system and know, hey, here's some of the finishes we know that we're going to be dealing with. Do we know that there's going to be extended drying? Let's make sure we have the right equipment on the truck. Don't just show up and say, "Oh, shoot, we've got to go back and now get the right stuff." Remote viewing, again, is absolutely huge. We can do it from a distance. We can make sure that at the end of the day, just like we check our emails, we can go in and check our scans. You have to make sure that all of this is right and compatible with the other platforms that you're using, whether it be your job management software, whether it be any other specific technology that you use. The more technology you use that speaks to one another, the easier things can become. I absolutely can't stand having to be in 5 different platforms, having those tabs on the top of the computer and clicking through them and, oh, here, I got to go there. I got to go there. It's so much easier if some of this stuff can just be right at your fingertips. Now, I'm going to round this out just by kind of going back to what I originally said about the tape measure and the laser. Please make sure you always have a tape measure, a laser, some graph paper, and extra pens and pencils, because technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't, it is the most frustrating thing for a lot of people. And case in point, for me, if I'm getting frustrated with technology, I simply just want to set it down. If I'm being totally honest, sometimes throw it out the window. At the end of the day, make sure you have that backup plan. I know we've got about 10 minutes left. If anybody has any questions, we are more than happy to answer as many as we can. All right. Without promoting a specific product, just left here. You see it? Okay. Without promoting a specific product, can you share some of the questions you asked or items you considered when researching various platforms? That's a great question. A lot of research should go into this. And John, I know that you were really diligent on picking the right thing. So do you just want to kind of go over a couple things that were top of mind for you?
A couple questions that I would be asking are, let's start with the camera. So some software out there allow you to use a camera that's outside of theirs, essentially. Ricoh, I think it's what it is. Ricoh cameras are a 360-degree camera. They range somewhere between $300 to $600. They're independent from that software, and they're compatible. And because they're compatible, it seems to be a less expensive version of a 360 camera. So one of the questions you should ask is, do I have to use your camera with your software, or can I use someone else's camera? Because it just need to be a 360-degree camera. So that's one thing. Ask about the camera, because some cameras are expensive and some aren't expensive. The other is, how does the mapping work? And what I mean by that is, some of these softwares have proprietary features in which they overlay previous images, and some don't. And how that affects certain things is how fast it actually takes you to scan a building. Without getting into too much detail, one software doesn't require me to have line of sight from the previous scan, while another one does. And as a result of that, I have to take a little bit more time and make sure that I'm opening doors or planning how I'm going to scan a particular building to make sure that it's all seamless and I don't run into any overlap issues. While another software, I could scan the room that I'm in now, walk across the hallway, go into another room, scan that, and at the end, it all ties it back together. That's a huge question. And I think if you dig deep into that, you might also find out that that saves you a lot of time to scan buildings. Scanning, by the way, just in general, a normal house of, we'll say a 3,500 square foot home, depending on the software that you're utilizing, can take as little as an hour up to 3 to 4 hours. So it's one of those questions that I would definitely ask is, how does your software work? And does the previous image need to overlay so that it all ties everything together? If it doesn't, it might affect the upload time of those scans. The other question I would ask is, how long does it take for the scans or the tours to become readily available to you as the customer? And how long before you can send it out? Some software, it's immediate. Other software, it's a day. I don't know if that helps, but those would be my recommendations.
All right. So there's a few other questions here, John, that I think I'm going to be able to answer fairly quickly. One says, what's your success rate at receiving payment from the insurance companies for the use of 3D camera technology? Roughly 70%, and it's all in how you communicate it. And also just note the file that you had that conversation with the adjuster, and then make sure that you're sending that adjuster the links. So 70% is safe, and heck, you could get it up to 80, 90%. I'm never going to say it's going to be 100%. And actually 90 is pretty rich as well, but 70% is safe. Next question. Do you have recommendations for how you involved members of your team in the vetting process of various platforms? Okay, this is a big one. If everything we used in an organization was everything that John Vogt or John Warnick picked out, it would be nothing short of a disaster, because you have to involve your team, because one person can't just understand the technology. So take your management team, or take, people from the field and people from production. What are their pain points? And then how can you involve them in that decisioning process? And then that also is making people more part of the team, if you will, or feel a little bit better, because they're being heard. And once they have that time save after they've vetted something out, or once you all get together as a team and say, hey, here's what the time save would be, how are you going to utilize it? Then everybody starts marching sort of in the same direction, if you will, and implementation and adoption becomes a little bit easier. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I can expand upon that a little bit more if you'd like. But going into the next question, you have recommendations or best practices for getting team members to learn and adapt to a new technology? If you fear technology, get used to understanding technology. It's the way we are headed, and adopting it and making sure that people are seeing the time save and then implementing it into your workflow and process. That is going to be how you drive this, making sure that you have it in your workflow, making sure that the individuals know when they need to do it, and also the fact that it also helps everybody to be a sales individual within the organization, right? They're doing something that they can show the customer, that they're going to be able to then show an adjuster. Maybe that customer shows another individual, and it all started from that individual who has now successfully adopted the technology and the process that flows right into the workflow.
And if I could add to that real quick, I think best practice there is take somebody who's tech savvy, somebody who's not. If you are part of a larger company, don't go out and buy 30 cameras at once. Go buy one of each, test the software out, implement it into a job or two as a test job, as a beta, and find out what works and what doesn't work, right? I think when you're trying to implement new technology, you have to take it from the field through the office. If you don't do that, sometimes we can be blinded by technology and say, wow, this seems amazing, this seems streamlined, this seems great. And then in practical use, it's just brutal and it doesn't work. So beta test everything, make sure you understand it from the field throughout, and also identify who it's actually going to impact. And then sometimes you might realize it's really beneficial for 2/3 of the project, but that first third, they're going to hate it. And that unfortunately might be the answer. But you have to take time to fully vet this stuff. Don't leave today being like, I'm going out, I'm buying a 3D camera, we're doing it. If you're going to do that, test it before you make the commitment to buying 10, 20, 30 cameras.
All right. So we just have on the screen 2-minute warning here. It's down to 1 minute. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Hopefully you had some takeaways. Myself and John are always around for questions. So if you do need anything, we can get you our emails, and look forward to speaking to you further.